Hey, welcome to the second episode of Talking Tactics with Coach Dan. Today's a very special podcast. We're gonna talk a little bit about the tactics from our USOC game, which was a very successful endeavor for the Vermont Green. But before we get going, Coach Dan, how you doing, man?
Doing well. My voice fully isn't recovered yet. Still have some, smoke in the lungs from the smoke bombs. And my arms are sore from the drums, but could be a lot worse off today, that's for sure.
That's for damn sure. We were gonna try and do all this yesterday, but I think the lot of us were pretty
Oh yeah.
ripped up still. So I definitely couldn't talk and I was having a hard time swallowing. But you'll hear me clear my throat a few times probably in the middle of my speech. Um, but so we did have a successful game. And I think we're gonna do a little bit of a hybrid talking tactics because we'll talk about the goals that
Mhm.
happened. And in between we'll talk about a couple of new players that featured for the club. So let's start right off with you know the Vermont Green was surprised to all of us. Uh, Came out on the front foot, came out ready to play, and immediately scored. So what really won the night was the set piece work.
Yeah.
So the very first goal comes early on, about a little less than 5 minutes into the match. Um, and it's a beautiful ball put in from Lockerman um, to our center back Zach Barrett at the back post. You want to take us through that a little bit and tell us
Yeah.
what you saw in the setup because I feel like there's that was one of the things that maybe that wasn't an accident, a happy accident. That was I feel like it was one of those things that they probably set up knowing if we're going to take advantage of them on anything, it's going to be on our corner kicks. It's going to be on set pieces.
Yeah, certainly. It wasn't all that crazy of a setup. I mean, it was pretty simple. We've seen the Green in the past sort of play the more modern approach to corners. Well, they'll have someone run onto the front post. They'll play a ball shorter, try for a flick on, maybe get the ball bouncing in the area. But this was a much more conceded effort. Um, Unmarked on the back post. He was from the defense's perspective, he was in no man's land. It was a free header. The nearest guy was probably maybe 5, 6 feet away from him. And it was just an incredibly well placed ball to the back post. One of those where the keeper can't come out and claim it because it's tight to his line, but it's over his head, so he can't, doesn't want to chase it off the other side. And just with enough loft on it that the defense was sort of caught off guard. I know from speaking with a couple of the guys before and after the game that set pieces were an area where they were focusing. These weren't back of the napkin things that were thought up on the fly. I mean, they had such a short run up to the game that they wanted to focus on some key areas, and set pieces were certainly that. Um, I mean, look, not to take anything away from the finish, but I think that that's a relatively easy finish for someone of his caliber to make. The second goal was quite a bit tougher for him as he was marked a bit closer. But you know, when you're able to have such success in the first 5 minutes, even if you are a quote unquote underdog, I didn't really see us as an underdog much in this game. But technically, I guess we were. Um, it was such, it was a dynamic moment. It lit a fire under our asses, and we really saw that, in the first, I'd say 25 minutes of the game, where we really sort of took it to them the most quickly.
Do you, do you think that because like on the rewatch, obviously in the stands you're seeing one thing. It's a little bit chilly out there. I wasn't really that cold all night, but like it was a little bit chilly out there. Um and like you see things differently when you're standing on the rail like that.
Yeah.
From what I saw on the field during the game, as opposed to what I saw on the first goal, on the rewatch, was that it kind of looked like Barrett kind of just like held off and waited for the rest of the defense to collapse and then just kind of snuck in there. He was standing there. I mean, it was I mean, it was probably one of the easiest goals that you'll see um, in anywhere from youth soccer through all the way up through, Premier League.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly a way to take a position on a corner kick. I mean, what is every coach say to their players on corners? Crash the keeper, crash
Right.
the box, right? If you don't get a touch on the ball, you're just creating some sort of chaos in there, and bumps happen, bobbles happen, the balls is up in the back of the
Yeah.
net. But
He
his
literally,
ability to be smart and to see that ball come off the foot of O'Brien and come into the back post and not
mhm.
crash and make that decision, right? What makes the best soccer players is their decision making, right? You can have all the technical skill in the world, but if you're dumb as a bag of bricks, you're not going to make it anywhere. So his decision to stay put and to read the play really, easy finish, but he made it easy for himself, right? He put himself in that position.
So yeah, basically he legit just he made that goal happen himself.
Yeah, he read
I
it.
mean, otherwise, I mean, you've seen 100 corner kicks, go long and unattended, and out for a goal kick. You see that a hundred times a year, so
Yeah,
yeah. So getting on to now we're getting onto the second goal. Now Lockerman provided the beautiful corner kick for the first goal.
that's
He
right.
scores the second goal, right?
Hmm.
Um, and on a corner from Yannick Bazzini, which again looking at the rewatch and being on the field, um, it seemed like this was kind of even a different setup, but this more traditional setup. That
Yeah,
this goal, um, I didn't expect, I didn't understand why Bazzini was the guy taking the corner kick there. Being as tall as he is, being a guy who can get his head on the ball. We've seen it before.
yeah,
Um, I just didn't understand the tactic there that they were employing. Obviously, it came off, and this was
Mhm.
like we talked about before, a little more traditional of a goal. Try and take us through that one a little bit
Yeah,
because
certainly. So I mean, just to first touch on Bazzini taking the corner. I mean, I'm an Arsenal fan. Declan Rice takes our corners. He's one of the best aerial presences in the Premier League, but we have him on corner duty. And so, there's, I as much as I love the Green, I won't compare their set piece coaching to Arsenal. But what we can say is that that wasn't just Bazzini going out and say, I got this one, lads, right? There was something that they had maybe they saw that he had the best curl in from because this was coming from the opposite side of the field. The first one came from the right hand side. This one's coming from the left hand side. And maybe they saw something about how he was able to place a ball better than another option, or maybe they just wanted him to take it. But it is a similar setup from the green, right? We saw them with a majority of their players hang it on the edge of the six, some of them deeper in the box towards the back post. But it's another well placed lofted ball up into the back post area. It's a jump ball in this instance. It was much closer marking. But again, the keeper doesn't get across the net quick enough. He should be locking down that near post or that far post the second that ball passes the penalty spot, right? And he should be screaming at his defenders to make sure that they're following it, right? There wasn't a defender that was coming to the ball. It was a straight jump ball. Both of the
right.
players didn't have much of a step or a run up to get to it. It was who can jump higher, who can get something on this. And if you actually watch back the tape, even if the keeper gets a hand to it, we have someone, and I couldn't see their number, so I couldn't identify them, but who is right there. So he gets a hand to that. That's a tap in for us as well. So Lexington sort of, I don't want to say they weren't well drilled on corners, but it looks like there's a certain amount of sort of disconnection in their communication to their back line when dealing with dead ball situations. So again, nothing taking away from the finish, nothing taking away from the ball, but Lexington certainly could have done better in that situation.
I think that we talked to the Crane Kicks Lex guys
Yeah,
last week on the pod, Will and I, and and they seem to put out there, they kind of wanted us to feel like, well, they're a new club, they brought a lot of new guys in, they don't have the
come on.
chemistry yet. Yeah, right. Come on, that's what I said because because they did, and I did mention this, they did have a full preseason.
They're 5 games into their season. They've played
Well,
5 games.
right. They've played a bunch of games, right? They've played together. They know who their starters are. They had a number of starters, um, that played in their previous game, um, and I feel like, they're going to want to use that as an excuse, is that they don't play well together yet. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, they have the highest scoring, you know player in the history of the USL 1 on their club.
On the
He's played
roster.
for
Yeah.
like, yeah, he's played for like 10 other goddamn teams in USL 1, but probably not 10, but all that said, I think that when you are a professional team, these guys are getting paid, whether they're getting paid, you know, $30,000, like one of the lower paid players in USL 1, up
Mhm.
to, somebody who like Cameron Lancaster, who's getting paid, about $80,000 a game or a year,
I
you
was
know,
gonna a game, dude. I was gonna say sign me up.
not a game. Yeah. A year. Like, these are guys, I don't care how new you are, you're getting paid to do a job. And if you're not doing it, to me, that's unacceptable, especially against an amateur club who has, granted, a lot of them were Vermont players,
Yep.
UVM players,
Mhm.
but this is an amateur club of mostly almost all college kids who are either now in college and we're on spring break, or we're we're here just finishing having just finished college,
Yeah.
their college season, I should say. So, um
I, I, I
you cannot um play defensive set pieces like that, in my estimation. The same thing happened with the Ashford goal too. I mean,
yeah. Well, so the Ashford goal in my mind is more of that, you know, as an old coach of mine used to say, put it in the mixer, right? You
right,
never
yeah,
know what's going to happen when that ball drops, right? First of all, the ball shouldn't be dropping in the box. There's got to be a head on it. There's got to be a foot on it. Something, right?
right,
But I don't want to take too much away from Lexington in this, because looking at how they set up expecting to take the game to us. And that age old saying of every, every great plan is or every plan is great until it meets, the first line of resistance, or, fight's always good till you get hit in the face, right?
yeah, the
And
Mike
so,
Tyson.
yeah.
Yeah,
So my looking at this game, sort of taking myself out of the supporter shoes and more into the analytical shoes, it looks like as a group, they were not expecting to see resistance. And when we showed them that, it took a while for them to wake up. And I mean, we saw that in the end of the first half and the start of the second half. We get a quick goal at the start of the second half, but then the next half hour was us playing on our heels, defending like our lives depended on it, because they did. We were able to cinch it out in the end, but we were on the night the better team. Unfortunately, I think if we play that game 5, 10 more times, it doesn't quite go our way.
right.
And that's sort of a testament, I think, to Vermont Green, to the boys, because you don't gotta win 9 out of 10. You gotta win one. And they
Right,
won the one that they had.
right.
Um, so we could sit here and sort of break down player decision making on a really granular level. Or we could take a bigger picture look at this and say we had excuse me, most of these guys together for about 4 days before kickoff,
Yeah,
some of them needing rides from Boston like a day before the game started, um, and say, look, that's probably not the way we're going to play all season, but it's good to know we can win ugly.
right.
And so, you know, just keep that in mind. I like to keep that in mind when I'm looking at this team.
So yeah, so let's do what we're more accustomed to doing here on Talking Tactics. So we have a player, in Nick Lockerman. He's from Nuremberg, Germany. he came to UVM what 2 3 years no he's a first season player.
Yeah, first year. Yep.
Um so he's a defender typically at UVM. And a lot of times you see these guys who are defenders end up in midfield, end up in forward positions. It's the same with Max Murray
Yeah.
when he plays for Sea Goats United. He is a defender, and he's a forward when he's playing for University of Vermont. And he takes corner kicks, being a large man. Um, what do we see out of Nick? Because you know here's a guy who could play right or left side.
Hmm.
He's ultra quick. He's not necessarily the tallest guy in the field. He's nearly 6 feet tall, but you know, he's still a young man. I mean, he plays well, he plays hard. I mean, what do you see and where do you see him, fitting into like the system? Because we played a 4-4-2 for this match.
Yep.
That's not typically the way we set up. So,
Well, so I, broad strokes, I see Lockerman playing as sort of an offensive minded outside back, right? The wing back, if you will, to sort of, you know, dumb it down a little bit. Um, his versatility, right footed, left footed, whipping the cross in, doing whatever he can on those sides will be great. What I really noticed about him in this game was his decision making, and I touched on that a little bit earlier, but coming out of the back, and we spoke about this on the last time we spoke, that is an area where it's no longer good enough to be a big body who hoofs the ball up the field, get it clear, lads. Like that's not how soccer is played anymore. And for better or for worse, I think it's for the better, but some people disagree with me. Um, we've seen in the past, especially with Nate when we had him in goal, a real focus on playing the ball through the backs, walking up that 5, 10, 15 yards up the field in our own defensive third to start our attack. And I think that Nick, where he plays, really doesn't matter. Like I said, I see him outside, but he could play inside. He could even push up into the center of midfield and really just be sort of a calming presence on the field that's a hard worker and someone who's really able to take 60 touches a game, but every one of them is meaningful and safe. Um, I will say with Vermont Green's new hire and Brad Agus, a former colleague of mine at BFC, I know the way Brad coaches and I know what's important to him, and that certainly was reflected in this game today. And kudos to him for planning so well and working with a new team on short notice. So you know it's really all about the style of play that VGFC wants to go with. I see him as an incredibly versatile player, and him being a European, means he probably had better training growing up than many of us did. So,
sure.
I'm sure he's up to the task.
Awesome. And yeah, I see a lot of great things from. Who knows where he's going to be, where he's going to fit in this team, whether he's going to get a lot of playing time. He was outrageous in this game.
Yeah.
And the work that he put in this game, as far as like my fans eye, I don't have a real tactical eye. I didn't play the game growing up. I don't coach the game. Um, I learn as much as I can from guys like you and some of the other tactical podcasts I listen to and that kind of stuff. Um, Not necessarily a lot of pundits and shit because I think half of them are full of it and they're just making things
That's
up.
fair.
But um, just as an observer of the game, I feel like he's going to fit in well, whether he's a rotation player, or whether he's a starter. I mean, you never know what's going to happen because we do have a lot of guys coming in and a lot of guys that are playing in the cup team that are going to be going out.
Mhm.
Um, so one of these guys I've just learned will be here for the summer, and is an incredible talent and has been an incredible talent since probably he was recognized at the age of 13 or 14 years old. Um, he's out of West Hartford, Connecticut. Um, and he did play a couple of years as a youngster playing for Hartford Athletic before coming to Vermont Green. And he was not a starter last night. He's a 19-year-old kid. Um, his name's Pierce O'Brien. Um, as much as everybody wants to think that he's an Irish kid, straight out of off the streets of Dublin, but he's a kid from West Hartford. I watched a lot of his stuff because I was like, who is this kid? Because he was not the nailed on starter.
No.
Um, our new stud from Costa Rica, Castillo was the starter,
Mhm.
and he was also playing an amazing game. I mean,
Yeah.
um, playing up that right side in the forward position. Um, he's playing an amazing game the entire game. Then he pulls up with the hamstring. We all saw it. I mean,
Yeah.
he tried to play for the next minute or so, and then like he had to get off the field. But um, Pierce came in, not knowing anybody on this team, not knowing the system that Coach Pfeiffer wanted to run, and just like slotted right in. And for the rest of the game, he was he was a pest
Yeah.
all over the place. And I think from my little bit of YouTube research that I saw, some of the stuff from playing with Hartford, he was mostly used as a number 10. He's a great
Yeah.
facilitator of the ball, um, very strong in the midfield, sometimes box to box guy, um, great pass in him,
Mhm.
but also a great dribbler.
Yeah.
Um,
I was just watching some of his stuff earlier, and you watch him, and I don't know how many times I saw him receive the ball, and it was out of his feet in a touch or two into a wider position, into a more advanced position. This guy receives the ball with his back to goal 80% of the time. And he's got that quick feet and that mentality where he says, if you're gonna let me turn, fine, I'll turn, I'll take you on. But he's, too good to not have that pressure on his back. So he's bouncing the ball back, almost sort of Iniesta or Busquets like.
I was gonna
Not
ask,
even
yeah,
too high of a compliment, but it's certainly a style of play that sort of no, I wouldn't say unselfishness, but that ability to be so aware of the space around you that you're comfortable losing the ball or not losing the ball, but moving the ball after two touches and just saying, all right, I'll get it back. Right. It's a style of play that is frankly, in my experience, it's not seen enough. There's dozens of times where I've seen on his films, specifically when it's with Hartford, where he checks in so deep, almost to the edge of his own box, and is able to receive the ball, beat a guy on the turn, right? So if they're pressing high, beat a guy on a turn, and then take 3, 4 touches and dish it. And, you know, he's maybe not the most, maybe he's not the guy I want taking all the shots, right? But a facilitator is something that Vermont Green has really been sort of aching for over the past couple of years. And I think that if he's able to earn that starting spot and play the way that he has played in the past, we certainly there is certainly an opportunity for Vermont to build a style of play around him. That's how
yeah,
influential I think he can be.
yeah. I mean, we have, if we're gonna have somebody taking shots outside the box, you want another midfielder, somebody like Zengay, somebody
Yeah.
who's gonna, who's that's a large part of his game.
Mhm.
I really liked my last tactical thing I want to ask you because um before we kind of get to some final thoughts here, but um defensively, we talked about a little bit about the wingback situation, the wingback style of play.
Mhm.
um we brought Musa out of the back, and put Zach Barrett there, along back with Jake, and we took Musa and moved him into the midfield, kind of a defensive midfielder type of position. Um, but on the wing backs, I want to talk a little bit about Benny Prego because I don't
Yeah.
know that he got a lot of the plaudits that he deserved. I know Fatmob only gave him like a 6.7 for the day.
We just say it's nuts we're on FOTMob though. Like that still doesn't compute with me,
I
right?
know it is kind of nuts, and I hope we stay there. and
Yeah,
it's not just for
after
the
the
cup.
Open Cup, yeah,
But I talked to a couple Western Mass fans online too, and they were like, again, for them too, they were blown away that
yeah.
they were able to excuse me, able to get there. But um, can we talk a little bit about Benny Prego's, like, he's just another guy. We have so many of these guys that are kind of like the Swiss Army knife type guys.
Yeah.
He could play a forward position. He could play an attacking midfielder type of a position. Um, maybe he doesn't have the finish in him that the other players do, but he kind of reminds me of like a and
Don't say
it's
a
not
Spurs
just,
player.
well,
Don't say a
it's
Spurs player.
former Spurs player, but he was somebody who came out of Real Madrid, uh, Sergio Regulon,
Sure.
as a
Yeah.
youngster before he came to Spurs and Conte ruined him.
Yeah.
um Somebody with speed, somebody um who had kind of a brain about him, made smart turns um when recovering the ball, but also a guy who can put in a really precise great tackle.
Yeah.
Did you have any analysis on that? Because
Yeah.
for me it was like such a fun game to watch, because Onan on that side for Lexington is a well-known player, and he's well, and he is going to be a big contributor for that team this year.
If he can find his way out of Prego's pocket.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
thank you. Set you right up for that one.
yeah. But he was my man of the match. If I had a pick, he was my man of the match. And as someone who played that wing back position for many years, you don't get the credit you deserve. Maybe that's just me being salty and having an opinion, but I think it's genuinely the case. When you look at the contributions that a wide defender can have, right? We didn't have bog standard wing backs. We had essentially a flat back four that we came to play with, which was a good decision in my opinion for this game. But when you look at the contributions that those players can have, right? It's really two main things you want to see out of a wide back. You want to see the ability to pressure a ball out wide and stop a cross, and you want to see the ability to advance your back line in possession and make sure that they're holding a line while still playing with an attacking mindset. And I think he did both of those things. It's also worth it to mention that he's not the biggest guy on the pitch, and whoever he was marking on the back post, I forget his name, never got a look at the ball in the air. It wasn't a thing that happened. So when we talk about him and his potential contributions, I see him as that sturdy outside back, maybe even a winger in the midfield, who can sort of electrify and push us forward in possession, and then be that stalwart outside back, ready to put in a hard tackle when he needs to, but smart enough to know when to hold your man out wide and just stop across.
Right. Um, you know, and one more thing before we get into our final thoughts, because um, we just want to remind the fans that this may not be the team that we see
Yeah.
in the spring and summertime. Um, we're going to see a lot of these players, but also they're going to be a lot of these players that may move on either early spring or early summer before our season really kicks into high gear. Um, One of those guys, Sydney Wathuda, who
Yeah.
like um, he's going to have big things happening for him. He was just absolutely wonderful on the night. A lot of these guys that contributed are kind of the old guard. Daniel Pacella, Dylan Lane from last year. Um, you know, Dylan, are a little kind of ginger midfield captain. Kind of running around like a crazy person. You got, and you had obviously Schnur is back,
Yeah.
Ashford is back. These are guys who are probably going to stick around, but we do have probably a number of these players who may not stick around all year. And when we think about those players, we think about a player like Gavork, who's now playing Revs 2 as kind of a nailed on starter. um but I toured in the year before.
Yeah.
So we just have to, as fans, recognize that going into the season. But for now, we do have another cup game coming up. The
Yes.
the draws will probably be coming out in the next week or two, or probably week or two,
Yeah,
after the first round gets finished.
if the first round's anything to go by, we'll know probably 4 days before the game, to be perfectly honest with you. Um, but yeah, I mean, that is important to note. However, I'm taking the view of this as it's 2 seasons, right? We have the US
Mhm.
Open Cup, and for the guy for amateur guys, this is a huge opportunity, right? Playing USL 2, playing USL 1 a season with them, yes, that's a great opportunity. You get eyes on you. You get time to hone yourself against a better competition in some cases. But in the US Open Cup is so special, and it's an inherent ability to showcase players on a stage that they would otherwise not have, and allow them to write a story, allow them to write a story about themselves, about their team, about their game that is not available, to majority of the players in the US. I know for a fact that we have a couple of guys on our roster, Bazzini being one of them, who was and Jake being one of them as well, that were real ticked off about not getting any offers from USL 1 teams or USL 2 teams, and this is their revenge tour.
I
And
feel
you
like
know what?
Dylan Lane
Yep.
as well. He told us, he told us post game.
Yeah, and that's great. If that's your motivating factor, that's great. If you're just here to play and you love the game and you love the sport and you want to help a burgeoning team really push the envelope on what is possible for an amateur club, that's great too. What what's important to recognize is that this group of guys, whether they're with us this summer or not, is the group of guys that I think have the capacity to do something special. Now, am I calling the moonshot? Am I saying we're going all the way? No. But 2 games, I don't think that's too far out of the realm of possibility. With
Especially after the fireworks that happened in that first round. Like,
the guys were tired, but they seemed pretty freaking excited at the end of it.
yeah,
So you know, Kevin Garnett, anything is possible. But it's important to recognize that as fans, this is great for us. As a team, this is great for us. But these individual players really have the opportunity now to show what they're worth. And if Vermont Green is doing what it should be doing, yeah, we should be winning games. Yeah, we should be partying a bunch with the founders, and we should be furthering our mission for climate justice. But we should also be happy when Gavork goes off to the Revs. We should be happy when Ethor goes off to the Sounders. And I think that
right.
that approach is something that's fundamental to amateur football worldwide. And I think it's important to keep that at heart when we're watching these games.
Awesome. That's perfect sentiments to
Yeah.
kind of send us off into the night, so we can go get some rest, watch our brackets get busted, and in general
Watch the
just
US lose to Jamaica.
watch the US lose to Jamaica. I have it on record upstairs because I do have all that basketball going on and all that stuff. Um and I was hoping to watch it a little bit later, but I don't know if that's going to happen now. If I already know what's going on, but um, again, guys, we are talking tactics with Coach Dan. We're a production of United in Green, which is in conjunction with the Blazing Musket. You can find us on social media on Instagram. We do have a Facebook page. We don't really check it that often. Unless my dad sends me a message on it every once in a while. Um, but we do have a Twitter feed coming, and by the beginning of the season, we're gonna have a pretty nicely streamlined look for our live streams, and we'll have a little more social media presence out there and put out some new content for you. But until then, I'm Mike, and we're sitting here with Coach Dan, and we just want to say as we go into the night, everybody, go out there, tread lightly, and be safe. And Dan, last words.
I got a team of U13 boys heading down to Seaport United this weekend for a tournament. Uh, let's hope that they can act on Vermont Green's behalf and smash them around a bit.
You know what? Let's get the navy and light blue to beat the white and light blue.
There you go.
So, congrats to Coach Dan and all of his U13 kids when they go down there and win that bracket and that tournament.